Funding for NJ Spotlight News provided by the members of the New Jersey Education Association, making public schools great for every child. From NJ PBS Studios, this is NJ Spotlight News with Brianna Venozzi.
Hello and thanks for joining us. I'm Joanna Gagis. Brianna Venozzi is off. We're bringing you a special NJ Spotlight News edition of Reporters Roundtable, where I'll have a roundup of the top political stories of the week with the help of a panel of local journalists. But first, a bipartisan legal battle is taking shape. Governor Sherrill has teamed up with the Republican-led Roxbury Town Council to take on ICE and the Department of Homeland Security. They're suing to block the federal agencies from converting their recently purchased Roxbury warehouse into a mass detention facility. The lawsuit filed on Friday alleges that, quote, the Roxbury warehouse is a logistics center fit for Amazon Prime packages, not people, and that the administration's plans to house up to 2,000 detainees here are illegal. The 470,000 square foot property, equivalent to the size of 8 football fields, is currently equipped with plumbing for only 4 toilets, not thousands of people. The lawsuit argues that this type of development would strain the site's waste capacity and water infrastructure. The demand on water supply at the detention center could limit emergency fire response around the region, and the overload of waste on the system could risk sewage overflowing into the water supply, which is part of the Highlands region and supplies about 70% of New Jersey residents' drinking water. In a statement, a spokesperson says ICE, quote, carefully evaluated the site before purchasing it to help minimize environmental impacts. But at a press conference with Attorney General Jen Davenport, Governor Sherrill criticized DHS's actions.
DHS did this with no planning, no consultation, and no response when town officials asked what was going on. No eye to even the most basic efforts needed to manage sewage, water, or public safety. This plan won't make the community or our state safer. And as I've said before, we will never just stand by and let this administration violate the rights of New Jerseyans. So today, the state of New Jersey and the township of Roxbury are coming together to sue ICE and the U.S. Department of Homeland Security to stop this illegal plan.
Well, it turns out ICE agents cannot be barred from carrying out enforcement action on any NJ Transit facilities, including station stops, buses, and trains. It's a distinction that transit officials noted this week after hearing calls from the community to ban ICE or CPB from making arrests on NJ Transit property. These requests came after video was shared of ICE officers making arrests at a light rail station on the border of Jersey City and Hoboken last month. In making those calls, some have cited Governor Sherrill's executive order that limits enforcement on state property. But that order applies only to private state property, like government offices, child care facilities, or medical spaces. It doesn't apply to public state-owned property, which includes all of NJ Transit's locations. The Trump administration has sued New Jersey over the executive order, saying it interferes with the federal government's enforcement of its immigration laws. NJ Transit President and CEO Chris Calori said this week that any non-public areas of the agency can only be used for civil enforcement with a judicial warrant or court order. But he added, quote, we are now going to work with the governor's office to develop labeling procedures for non-public areas and finalize employee protocols for interacting with law enforcement. Those are our top headlines. Reporters Roundtable starts right now. Governor Sherrill has put the money where her mouth is, or rather where the priorities are that she outlined on the campaign trail. Hi, everyone. I'm Joanna Gagis. This is Reporters Roundtable. We've got a panel of journalists with us to help break down all that's happened in the last week of New Jersey news. Let's see who we have with us today. First up, Colleen O'Day, senior writer and projects editor with NJ Spotlight News, Jelani Gibson, politics reporter for NJ Advanced Media, and Matt Friedman, reporter, Politico, and author of New Jersey Playbook. Well, the Sherrill administration priorities are taking shape now that the governor has outlined a spending plan, but it's all set against the backdrop of federal policies that are impacting New Jersey. Colleen, let's start with the news of the day. The Sherrill administration is suing the Department of Homeland Security over the Roxbury warehouse that they purchased to turn into an ICE immigration detention center. New Jersey's had some success taking legal action against the Trump administration. Do they have any legal standing here to stop this purchase, to stop this center from moving forward?
So the purchase has been done, so I don't think they can stop that, but they certainly may be able to stop the construction or the changing that facility into a detention center. We saw the state of Maryland file a suit against the feds a few weeks ago when the feds tried to, and that's still pending, but tried to create a center in a town there. And they were granted a preliminary injunction for at least a couple of weeks based on some of what they argued, which is that, the federal government is supposed to provide certain advance notice to a state under federal law, and none of that happened in Maryland. And as far as we know, none of that happened in New Jersey. So I would think that that would be some good grounds, at least, to delay the construction.
But of course, no precedent set yet, right, as to actually stopping that effort altogether?
Not in the courts, certainly. There were some places across the country where opposition was so strong, and local congresspeople put some pressure on DHS that those just didn't move forward.
Although we have not seen that from any of our Republican congressional representatives, including Congressman Tom Kean Jr., who does represent Roxbury as part of his district. Jelani,
correct.
We have a new assemblywoman in the assembly, Katie Brennan, who all eyes were on her when she was first elected as someone who might come in and be a disruptor, a change maker. But all of a sudden, she's in the hot seat for some legislation that she wrote that would try to block some ICE enforcement here in the state. What can you tell us about that?
Yeah, so basically the acronym is FICE. And it would basically allow people to sue ICE for violations of constitutional and civil rights in civil court, which also happens to be roughly the same type of court system that ICE does most of its arrest and detention in to begin with. And an ethics complaint has been filed against her by another Republican about the acronym itself.
Yeah, this is one of the, I guess, kind of kitschy things that happens in politics, right? You write a bill and then you need to come up with a title for that bill that creates an acronym that you can say easily. This one is Fight Unlawful Conduct and Keep Individuals and Communities Empowered Act. So anyone can read that and figure out what that says, as you explained already. Assemblyman Bergen says, look, the legislature, this is a direct quote here, legislature is not a playground for performative activism. New Jerseyans expect us to govern seriously, write real policy, and respect the institutions we serve. Is there an expectation of decorum here that maybe she's crossed the line over? Do you think that most legislators here would agree with Assemblyman Bergen?
I haven't really heard anything from the Democratic caucus that's raised too many concerns about it. And quite frankly, ethics complaints in the New Jersey legislature, they don't tend to go that many places. So we'll see. But ethics complaints for the New Jersey legislature, they don't tend to go very far.
Yeah. We'll be watching to see what happens there. Matt, at the other front of law enforcement in New Jersey is the U.S. Attorney's Office. Judge Karashi here in New Jersey, federal judge, lambasted some of the prosecutors in that office. Can you explain some context for what's happening there? It's a bit wonky. The average person probably doesn't pay too much attention here, but it is significant.
Well, essentially, there's a number of statutes about what you do if there's not a Senate-confirmed U.S. attorney in office. And the Trump administration has decided that even if they can't get their nominee through the Senate confirmation process, like Alina Habba, who's the only person who's been formally nominated at this point, that they'll keep putting their choices in and try to make end runs around the various statutes through untested means to put people who are clearly, have no independence from the Trump administration leading the prosecutor offices. Judges keep invalidating them. This federal statute says very clearly that judges get to pick an interim person until there's a Senate confirmed nominee, but different statute also says that the president can fire the U.S. attorney. So we're in this this game now where the judges name someone, the president fires someone, and then it's just start over again. So what we have right now is this quote unquote triumvirate of 3 attorneys running the U.S. Attorney's Office. There's absolutely nothing in the law that says this is possible, which the judges have, ruled on and said this is illegal, but we're in kind of a holding pattern as we wait for an appeals court. Ultimately, because New Jersey is far from the only state where this is happening, ultimately I'm sure this is going to the Supreme Court, and we're going to have to get precedent from them because it seems like there's 2 very conflicting things going on here.
But on the tangible side of that, though, Matt, is the reality that there are cases right now that may be impacted in terms of how they're prosecuted. And one case at hand was a child sex offender. You wrote about it.
That's true. And
go ahead.
Yeah, what I think is shocking is that the Trump administration has been trying to play this off as judges are going to let criminals go free because they won't prove our prosecutors. But in this case, the judge was taking it to the prosecutor for saying, hey, you're insisting that this case move forward, and you cut this plea agreement with the guy before you had all the evidence. So you cut a plea agreement for one thing, but turns out he had a whole lot more child porn and a whole lot more victims at the time you cut the plea agreement, but you're still trying to go forward, and you're agreeing to a sentence that is 1/3 of what federal guidelines call for. So in this case, he flipped the script a bit. But I think what his real contention was, the judge's real frustration was like, it's not clear, your leadership structure has been ruled illegal, but you still want to move forward with this, even though I've given you a chance to put it off for a month while this gets decided in appellate court. They didn't take it. And not only did you want to move forward with this, but you're saying you want to move forward because this is a victim's case. And then he's saying, well, there's a lot more victims here. I don't think you're really doing the victims justice by effectively letting this guy off easy.
Yeah, and of course we know too, Matt, that cases could be dismissed if any judge decides to rule that way because of who was in charge and how those cases were prosecuted. So there could be some kind of trickle down effects from this as well. I want to just shift gears and look at the legislature again taking up some ICE action. Colleen, this package of bills once again moving through the legislature that they've had a lot of fits and starts. Where are they right now? These 3 immigration bills that we know 2 of them, Governor Murphy pocket vetoed on his way out of office.
Right. So there's 3 bills. One would stop any law enforcement officer from wearing a mask and not carrying identification. But we know who it's aimed at. It really is aimed at ICE officers. There is a Privacy Protection Act to prevent the collection and sharing of information about immigration status and other personal information. And there's the codification of the AG's Immigrant Trust Directive, which essentially limits local law enforcement from working with ICE to help detentions unless there is a criminal complaint against someone. After the pocket veto, legislators immediately reintroduced these into the current legislative term. They've gone through committees. They are both up for final votes in the Assembly and Senate on Monday. And then they go to Governor Sherrill, and we'll see what she does. As long as that ICE, the Immigrant Detention, the Immigrant Trust Act codification is essentially the same language as the directive, it seems like she would sign it because that was what she telegraphed during her campaign. I would think she might be inclined to sign the other 2, but certainly the governor's office doesn't discuss pending legislation, so we're not really sure what's going to happen.
Colleen, though the bills were up for a vote and then pulled at the last minute in a previous session, is there any word out there that there are perhaps some Democrats who are still not in support of advancing these bills?
Yeah, I don't think that's the case. What I heard was that there was some language in one of the bills that just slipped through the cracks that they needed to change, and they want the 3 bills to pass as a package. They want to send them to the governor's office together. So that was what the holdup was.
Jelani, one of the things that Governor Governor Sherrill said she was going to do early on was create this database where people could file complaints against any ICE activity that they saw that might be unconstitutional. What are we seeing so far in terms of folks who are out there reporting ICE activity?
Well, ever since the portals debuted, as of a couple of weeks ago, they've gotten around 35 substantial, submissions. They've received many more submissions than that, but that's about the amount that they're basically going after. They're playing their cards pretty close to the chest on other details that surround it, but that also seems to function around concerns of how much information they want to give out about the people that are submitting stuff to the portal for concerns of anonymity's sake.
Yeah. Let's switch gears. We're just a couple months away from the World Cup coming here to New Jersey. The governor came in and made some big changes to the Fan Fest, right? A lot of folks were planning for this big excursion at Liberty State Park. All of a sudden, she says, look, it's not going to be one event. It's going to be several. It's going to be spread around a lot of different towns. Jelani, tell us what towns are getting involved and what has taken shape so far.
Yeah, I mean, you've got a couple of towns that are getting involved. It was supposed to be, a massive, this massive party in Jersey City. Now it's been split up between, Jersey City, Newark, Rutherford, like a whole lot of places throughout the state where you're going to have like basically these miniature parties. And, the Jersey City mayor did not want this giant party in Jersey City. They were like, transit concerns and about how people are going to get there. And so breaking it up into multiple parties across the state seems to be the move that folks are going for right now.
How much do you think that is because of the more than $250 million budget hole that Jersey City is facing?
Well, speaking to some folks that are familiar with that off record, it definitely played a role in the decision and the optics of the matter as well.
But of course, there's no parking. That means no tailgating. Anyone who's planning on grabbing a six-pack or more heading to the games cannot do that. It looks as though NJ Transit is going to be increasing its bus schedules. There's going to be park and ride options, ride share options. If you're a New Jerseyan and you're trying to get over to the stadium, how much chaos do you think this creates for what you're used to as just a quick drive up and a park in the parking lot?
Well, if you know NJ Transit, you're already used to chaos to begin with. So hopefully, if you are an optimist, the stakes of the situation might make NJ Transit function a little bit better. And at its worst, you could see everybody in the world experiencing the same thing that we experience every single day in terms of frustration. It'll be one of the major tests.
Don't be such an optimist, Jelani. Realist. You're a realist over here.
Yeah.
Matt, switching gears again. We have a new acting comptroller. Not a lot of people know what the heck a comptroller is, but our previous comptroller secured significant amount of funds in New Jersey looking at fraud. Tell us who's coming in, and let's start there.
Well, we have Shirley Amahelu. She is new. I mean, I don't know her, but she was in the Attorney General's office under Matt Platkin for a couple of years, where she was the third ranking official. I don't know if that means anything about her zeal against political bosses that Matt Platkin and Kevin Walsh, the previous comptroller, shared. But I can tell you that there was just a decision involving a key South Jersey patronage agency between the two states, between New Jersey and Pennsylvania, called the DRPA, where the comptroller has been suing.
Delaware River Port Authority, right?
And the comptroller has been suing for some documents related to an investigation they're conducting. And the DRPA has preemptively sued them in court. They're saying, we'll turn over the documents, but we can't cede our authority here. At the same time, the previous comptroller was saying there's no guarantee that they'll turn over all the documents. We need them to turn over, even though they're saying they'll do it voluntarily. But the comptroller has now won two victories over them in getting them to turn over the documents, I think it is. And the question is, will this comptroller approach the job with the same kind of zeal that the previous one did, that Kevin Walsh did? And we don't know yet, but there will be a key test, because in one of his last big investigations, Kevin Walsh went to the heart of the George Norcross insurance empire. And he looked at these joint insurance funds that are extraordinarily complicated and hard to process. And that's part of the reason these things get so little scrutiny, but it's a lot of money. And he's saying, what are we doing here? We've got the company awarding the contracts to the same company, basically. I mean, that's an oversimplification a bit, but that is the gist of what he was saying. And this is a pretty crazy case. And the health insurance funds are suing right now so that they don't have to develop these correction action plans. And the question is, will this new comptroller continue to pursue them aggressively, or will there be political pressure? You know, and you say that comptroller. Yeah,
I want to look at the politics of it a bit, because as you said, Shirley Amahelu served under Attorney General Matt Platkin. He also took on the Norcross machine. He brought a RICO case. It was not successful. But you've got two people in positions who were pretty aggressive there. You have to wonder if she kind of is going to carry forward the torch of both of them, as you've said. Are there any signs so far as to how she's going to handle this seat?
Not yet. It seems like they're the DRPA case. It seems like they're full speed ahead and staying the course on that one, and they're not giving up to this agency. But we don't know. Previous comptrollers, Kevin Walsh's predecessor, was he was far less aggressive, and in fact, when we're talking about fraud, basically created an amnesty program for the massive amount of fraud going on in Lakewood. Which is, let's face it, a very politically connected community that votes as a bloc and wields substantial influence. And there's a huge amount of welfare fraud going on there. And he cut an amnesty program, which I've never seen for another wider community. And still, most people didn't take him up on it. And there haven't been that many prosecutions that I'm aware of there. So the office, it varies by person how aggressive they are.
Yeah. Well, we'll be watching. We'll wait and see. Colleen, it seems anywhere you look right now, data centers are a central talking point. We've got one being developed in Vineland. It's created noise disturbances that we see residents posting about on the regular, asking the Department of Health to get involved. But you looked at, in particular, a bill that's moving through the legislature that would attempt to rein in some data center development here in the state. What can you tell us about it?
Yeah, there are actually a bunch of bills that are moving through. The one that I looked at would essentially require all data centers or all large data centers to supply their own electricity or use only a new source of electricity. So if they don't supply it, they'd be in working with an organization or with an energy provider that's providing, again, just new electricity, and it would have to be clean energy only, not coal-fired plants, the old-fashioned electricity. The caveat here is that the state, while it wants to make sure, wants to try to stop further increases in electric bills, that doesn't want residents to have to pay for these huge data loads that these centers use. It also doesn't want to lose the economic opportunities of centers being cited here. So this law would only take effect if other states in the PJM region, which is where we're located, pass a similar law.
Do you hear any pushback on this type of proposal from Republicans in New Jersey?
Absolutely, yes.
What are they saying?
Yeah, I mean, they're saying that, they don't want people's electricity bills to go up, and they also would like to see the economic opportunities coming in, but, they're afraid that some of these bills at least could make it impossible or make it much less attractive for businesses to come in, for data centers to come in, and, they'd rather see the economic opportunities happening.
Yeah, there's a whole lot that is yet to be understood as to what it means for a community where a data center comes in. But if you could, Colleen, tell us quickly what's happening in Montvale as it relates to a data center and affordable housing.
So it's hard to do this quickly, but, there's this law now that says you've got to provide a certain amount of affordable housing. Every town had to file plans. Montvale, which was the leader of the lawsuit that failed, trying to stop the law, has submitted a plan that would give the developer the option to either build 250 housing units, 50 of them would be affordable, or and a data center. And, I think we know that data centers could provide much fewer impacts in terms of their kids going to school. Probably wouldn't need the same kind of police force. Those kinds of things that municipalities have to pay for. The housing advocates are just furious, saying, they're trying to get out. They've been trying all along to get out, and they're now doing this to try to stop, to prevent the construction of housing, which we know as many as 200,000 people in New Jersey need. So they're taking Montvale to court over this.
Yeah, and just a few seconds left, Jelani. Gas prices are up. The governor's saying this is all laid at the feet of the president. The president says increased prices are a small price to pay for security against Iran not having a nuclear weapon. How does that play here for voters and residents here in New Jersey?
New Jerseyans are tired of high bills. They are tired of their property taxes. They're tired of the electricity bill, and now they're paying at the pump. Whether or not it works on blaming Trump, we do have to acknowledge that very rarely does a president do well when the gas prices are high in terms of approval. And so time will tell.
Time will tell. Colleen, Jelani, Matt, thank you so much for being with us today. It's all the time we have. You can follow me on Instagram at Joanna Gagas NJ, and go ahead and scan that QR code right there on your screen to see more episodes of Roundtable. That's going to do it for us this week. I'm Joanna Gagas for the entire team here at NJ Spotlight News. Thanks for being with us. Have a great weekend.
NJM Insurance Group, serving the insurance needs of residents and businesses for more than 100 years.